It's finally time for me to finally read something without being in such a hurry as my usual videos, and let us not waste time and delve deep within the fantastic, boring life of Sakeios. I was born in 1993 in Porto, Portugal, which is also where I currently live, and I was a very, very ugly baby. My parents have even confided me that even though they loved me very much, and that will never change, after they were done handing me over to the family members when I was first born, they had a moment alone where my father literally said, I never thought he'd be this ugly. Do you think all babies are like that? To which my mother responded with, I was wondering the same thing. True story, by the way. But moving on, when I was 8 months old, I was having development issues. I cried all the time and I was losing a lot of weight really fast. Keep in mind, we're in the beginning of 1994, and at this moment there was no way to simply search the keywords, my baby is ugly and losing weight fast, to find the always comforting words of Google tell you that the same baby is going to die within 2 days if you don't find him the scorpion antivenom found only in Uganda if you know the way. So they took me to a whole lot of doctors to try and figure out what the deal was, until one of them was able to pinpoint the problem through a series of tests that actually lasted for a whole month. At this point, I was very tiny and my mother and father actually thought I might be a goner, so they were desperate and depressed. In the end, the doctor came out with my blood test scores and told my parents that I had celiac disease. And upon hearing those words, my mother broke down crying without even knowing what the hell that meant. Basically, it meant that my body had an autoimmune disorder that triggered whenever I ingested gluten. Yeah, I've been eating gluten-free since before it was cool. And the treatment for this disease? Well, that's it. You don't eat gluten, and you'll do just fine. So I stopped eating gluten and everything was indeed fine. The problem was, there was not much information or gluten-free foods as they are today in Portugal. So I had to travel to Spain a lot of times to get gluten-free cookies, pastry, candies, etc. By the time I was 4, my parents decided to put me in the German school of our city, simply because it was a highly valued school in our city at the time. And they believed in the strict German education to be one of the best, even if they had committed a few mistakes in the past. I hated school. The first 2 weeks I did nothing but cry. Obviously, I'm talking about a 4-year-old, and I was the firstborn son, so I had no older brother looking out for me in that new environment. It was just me and a bunch of strange people talking a strange language because, yeah, they speak German to you even though you understand nothing of it, to get you used to hearing it. 4 years old. They could have been cursing me for all I care. I made a few friends, some of which I'm still in very good terms with today, and I would trust them my life. Fast forward to about 5th grade, and now I'm 11 years old and still learning at the German school, and so they usually divide students into different learning classrooms like 5th grade A, B, C, etc. I was put in A, whereas all my best friends were put in B. I was so bummed. I was never part of the popular group, and being a very small, shy kid, I had a lot of troubles with bullying. There were these 2 massive dickheads that made my life miserable every single day. Nothing physical, mind you, it's not that type of bullying, but a psychological one. I was called names, made fun of for my stature, condition, just about everything they could pick on, they would. At some point, the rumor even started spreading that I was gay, and believe me, in 2004, it was not pleasant or accepted as it is today. I hated having to go to school. And at home, my mother was very strict with me when it came to studies and grades. I was not even close to being the brightest student, and I don't remember paying attention to class once in my 18 years of basic education. I was much more interested in class about the fly buzzing around and whether it had feelings of its own or a sense of self. So after school, after homework and studying, finally the moments came that made me feel complete, safe, and in control of my destiny. Video games. Oh, the sound of the PlayStation 2 turning on still puts a smile on my face to this very day. I also started playing volleyball at around this age of 10, but to be honest, I only did it because I was kind of pushed into it by my father. And I never thought back then that it would have the impact that it does today in my life. Growing up with games like Crash Bandicoot, Abe's Odyssey, Ape Escape on the PS1, and then Final Fantasy X, Kingdom Hearts, Jak and Daxter, Ratchet & Clank on the PS2, made me the person that I am today. I remember simply dwelling in those fictional worlds for hours on end, and the feelings they brought me is something I search for still today in other video games, but it never quite compares. Maybe due to the games of today, or maybe simply because you kind of grow up. It's actually quite sad if you think about it. But then, after I finished the Abitur with 18, my options were quite open in terms of what I could study. Honestly, I had absolutely no idea. I was very inclined to study sports, since it was the one thing that I was undoubtedly good at. Despite me not being very tall, I was very nimble and athletic. But what good would come of studying sports, I thought? Like becoming a sports teacher in the middle school? I kept thinking back to all those games I played and how they were always revolving around people wanting to make a difference. And I, without a doubt, wanted to make a difference. To this day, I have no idea why I specifically went into filmmaking, since I was neither very good at it or enjoyed it very much. But I thought that even if it went badly, I could always turn the knowledge I got from it and turn it into video game productions. I knew without a doubt that I wanted to tell a story. To create an unexisting world like that of Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Final Fantasy, etc. and have people delve into them and get transported out of their ordinary lives for a while. Now, whether I was going to do this via a book, a movie, a series, or a video game, I had no idea. I mean, still to this day, I have this goal and I have the world, it exists, but how should I go about releasing it? Well, I'm kind of losing track here. Okay, so I decided to study filmmaking here in my hometown, and at this point, I also fell in love for real for the first time in my life. She was all I could think of in that summer before going to college. We started dating, and it was perhaps the most painful and also joyful moments of my life. One day, everything was perfect, and I was in heaven. Then the next, she wasn't so sure about us anymore. I felt so bad and like I was in a relationship where I was more in love with my partner than she was with me. But it was just a phase and eventually the boat stopped rocking and we were just inseparable. This part kind of deserves a complete draw its life of its own, so I won't go much into detail here and tell you that when I was in my third and final year of college, I started breeding leopard geckos simply because I owned a few pets and decided that it would be an interesting way of getting some money on the side. Parallel to that, I created my first YouTube channel in Portuguese, which is still active today, called War Geckos, and I realized that I was not half bad at explaining things to people and that a lot of people really enjoyed the type of videos that I made. It's still active today, but it's in Portuguese, so I bet you won't understand a thing. It was that same year that I also started playing League of Legends. At first, I completely hated it for its difficulty and controls, since I was a console gamer and not a PC gamer. But the graphics and sheer amount of friends that played it made me devoted to learning it. I finished university and got a job offer from a Portuguese university about 40 miles or 65 kilometers from where I lived, to go work there as a video producer. I accepted it, and since I didn't have a lot to do during the day, I ended up watching a lot of streams and YouTube videos about League of Legends, and I realized that there was a lot of horrible and outdated videos about topics which I thought people would search for a lot on YouTube. I mean, the pay from my job wasn't great, but it was also not bad and gave me time to strategize a way to grow from it and learn a lot about how to be a YouTuber and a streamer as well. I decided once and for all, about 8 months after I started working there on a 9-to-5 basis, that I could not have this life for the rest of my life. So I made the decision to get away from Portugal for a while and get my master's degree abroad. It was the second most stressful summer of my life since I had just quit my job, but I had raked in enough money to go study for a year. It was also the time to start saying goodbye to all the comfortable situations I had in my home country. Family, friends, girlfriend, volleyball. It was all going to change in a matter of just a few weeks. I got accepted into a university in the south of England called Bournemouth University, and even though my grades were not nearly enough to get in, the head professor offered me the chance to impress him with an interview and to prove him that I was worth the chance to take the course and be called a Master of Post-Production Editing at the end. Carl, if you're by any chance watching this video, I owe you, man. So I started saying my goodbyes, one of which was to my girlfriend of 5 years, and we decided we would try long distance, but I knew full well that it could easily mean the end of our relationship then. It was brutal. But when I got to England, the first day was very exciting. I dropped all my belongings at the Airbnb and went to visit the university, which was simply astounding. But no one or anyone or anything in life can prepare you for the first night away from your comfort zone for what would be a very long time. I Skyped with my family and actually nearly cried myself to sleep, thinking I had made a horrible decision. The classes I had were absolutely awesome, and it was the first time in my life where I actually felt bad and like I missed something useful if I skipped a class. But then, when I got home, the loneliness would sink in. So I started playing more and more League with my friends who were still in Portugal, and team spoke with them so that I didn't feel so alone in a foreign country knowing almost no one. But my friends only had time at night, so I played alone in the afternoon and felt like it was simply a waste of time the hours I dedicated to that game. So I ended up creating a YouTube channel with the goal of helping noobs climb their way out of bronze or silver, and it simply flourished into the channel that we've got here today. Keep in mind, I was also quite the noob by then. I think I was silver when I started the channel or something. So me and my girlfriend broke up just about 3 months after my move to England, and we did not have a healthy post-breakup at all. And if I can be completely honest with you, the scar hasn't even fully healed now after more than a year has passed. But again, as I said, that's a story for another time. I came back to Portugal after I got my degree and have decided to try out this YouTube thing and move on if it doesn't pay off. I mean, we've all got to be realistic, am I right? And I love what I do, but I've also got to take care of myself financially if I hope of having a future. One thing I can tell you for sure, you will hear my name. Maybe not as Sakeios, but you will know of me. I can guarantee you that. Now, I feel like I wrapped this up too quickly, but it was getting way longer than I expected, and I have no idea if this format is even worth it for a channel like mine. But if you liked it, then let me know in the comments. Please hit that like button, and maybe I'll do a part 2 or a sequel with a different section of my life, so like volleyball, relationships, league career, future goals, or even my fictional world. For now, I'll be seeing you. Sakeios out.